The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and thanks for joining today's webinar looking at secrets of success on deploying CASB solutions and managing shadow IT and cloud application risk. My name is Shona Bradshaw. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for Bytes Security Partnerships, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Dave Barnett, who's the Head of CASB Solutions across EMEA at Forcepoint. So just going to take you through the agenda for today's session. Give a very short introduction to Bytes. Many of you know us already, so I will keep that exceptionally brief before introducing some of the core points that we'll be raising during the webinar and introducing Dave. Dave will be talking a bit about the emergence of shadow IT and cloud application risk, taking us through some real-world cloud application challenges and how businesses are resolving them, and then giving some tips, hints, and technological ways to resolve some of the core challenges that organisations face when they're trying to deploy and support their businesses in using more cloud before a Q&A at the end. Bit of housekeeping for today's session. Attendee lines will be on mute throughout today's presentation. However, we do welcome questions throughout, so please do post those questions as they occur to you throughout the session via the chat or the questions box. I will come back on at the end and pose them all to Dave on your behalf. We'll keep discussions during today's sessions to strategic and solution discussions. We won't get into depth on commercials on this session. Of course, those conversations are more than welcome with your Bytes account manager after the session. We're recording today's session, so please do take that and share that within your wider business. And lastly, a quick request from me. We do have a short feedback survey at the end, intended to make sure that these sessions are hitting the mark for you content-wise. If you could take a minute at the end of the session to fill that in, that would be really appreciated. So who are Bytes Security Partnerships? We are the security specialist reseller within the Bytes technology group. We were bought by Bytes 7 years ago now, and what we aim to offer businesses is to marry the agility and insight and the very personal specialist knowledge that you would expect from a small independent partner with the scale, resources and deployment expertise that you would expect from a large multinational group. We're exceptionally proud at Bytes Security Partnerships of the technology, services and the technical team that we've developed in-house to support our core technical partners such as Forcepoint. This allows us to enjoy top-tier vendor statuses such as our platinum partnership with Forcepoint, which will allow us to deliver both on the commercial side for businesses as well as the technical side. We work across the full spectrum of information security, from the standard next generation firewalling, web and email security that we've grown up with over the years, through to cloud security, data security, identity and application security, which is what we're talking to you about today. Across all of those, we offer the suite of technical services, essentially the extension of your IT team that's needed in order to help with some of the areas that are on the current slide. So whether you're looking for support and engineering, support on solutions you've deployed, whether you're looking to work with a partner on developing your security strategy and technology mapping, or whether you're looking to plan, scope and deliver projects, that's where Bytes essentially add value to the Forcepoint solutions that we discuss and other vendor solutions that we offer to businesses. So that's more than enough about us. Why are we increasingly being asked questions and talking to customers about CASB and cloud applications? It's fair to say that there's lowered visibility in the cloud of what your people within your businesses are doing and the risks that are happening. Traditional security tools are leaving gaps in coverage and security blind spots, many of which lead to increased vulnerability in organisations. Whether businesses are willing to accept it or not, shadow IT is on the rise. Up to 53% of IT applications are rumoured to be unmanaged and unsanctioned applications, so those which IT teams may not have full control over or even visibility of. And that's where malicious insiders or advanced attackers externally are finding gaps that they can exploit and deploy. So what we've invited you here to understand is, let's look at the reality of how CASB solutions can address these and how businesses are actually deploying them right now in order to reduce those gaps and increase that visibility, essentially enabling you to offer your business and your end users the ability to use the cloud in a more safe manner to drive productivity but manage that security risk. So all that it remains for me to do is to introduce Dave Barnett at Forcepoint. He's the head of CASB across EMEA. But Forcepoint have been a Platinum Bytes partner for over 5 years, Gartner DLP and Web and Email Security Leader 8 years running. And so who better to talk to? This is about developing a unified approach to data security across on-premise cloud and those cloud applications as well. So I'm just going to pass over to Dave, who's going to take you through the insights today into how to develop a CASB solution that lowers some of those application risks. Over to Dave.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shona. And can I just get a check that you can see my screen okay?
I can indeed.
Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much. And also thank you to everybody joining us today. This session is going to go mildly into technicalities. We're also going to focus really on what the secrets are. And the secrets are not secret if you tell anybody. So apologies for the false advertising. I will tell you the secret. The secret is to really focus on what risk the business perceives going forward. And put simple, easy to deploy and cost-effective tools in place to solve those. And the CASB market, as if you probably can imagine, is converging. Web security and DLP and next generation firewalls are starting to adopt CASB technologies. So that's kind of our approach really, is to focus on integration where it matters. So, but let's talk about simplicity, right? Because I'm a very, very simple person, and I kind of enjoy playing bowling, but I'm actually not that good at it. You know, just don't tell my kids. But you know, without the guardrails at the side, I can't score more than 40 or 50. So take this analogy, right? You know, when you bring a child to the bowling alley and you get to put those guardrails up and you score 100. Well, this is what CASB is. It keeps your users going down the middle in a very cheesy animation. And whilst bouncing them back in. They're guardrails for the cloud. So whatever you decide that you want to control, use very simple guardrails to control your users' behavior and the way they're interacting with data, both data that you're allowing them to, from sanctioned applications that you're allowing them to use, but also to applications that they choose they may use themselves. So for example, I don't know, if somebody's decided that they're going to do some DevOps with Jira, or maybe somebody senior within your business has decided not to tell IT because IT is slowing stuff down, right? Let's just stop them from putting personal data into Jira. Or if you've provided Salesforce for your users, but you're concerned about people forwarding sensitive data to their personal email, because that's quite a common risk. There are lots and lots of things we can do, and the secret really is to focus on specific bullets that we can fire at the risk that you have. So I wanted to just talk very highly around investment. Organizations are investing insane amounts of money in public cloud. I know of 3 customers in the UK alone who've invested more than $200 million in Salesforce. Now, the most important thing a business has to do when you invest that type of money is use it. Is to be able to use the cloud as quickly as you possibly can. So to try and overcome the security and the compliance barriers to using more cloud. Because the worst thing that could possibly happen if you've made that large investment is for security risks to slow it down. Or for example, if you've bought E3 but you haven't allowed sharing from OneDrive because, well, you know, people might share, right? You know, you've got the visibility and control of sensitive data leaving the business. So a typical process is, well, it's too risky, so we won't allow it. Or we can't be seen to allowing it, so we're going to block it. Then what do the poor users use? Well, they'll go and find their own is a solution. People are very sophisticated problem solvers. We pay people to solve problems, and if the solution is not provided by IT, they'll typically find it themselves, and that is known as shadow IT. So shadow IT is typically a symptom of a bigger problem. The analysts, Gartner didn't spot, the rise of search engines or social networking. So they're kind of really good at telling you how it is right now. They're not great at telling you in the future, not just Gartner, but any analyst. But they do have really good insight into the state of the market at the moment. And what they're saying is that if you have a CASB to protect your cloud applications, you will have lower risk, and that means a consequent, quicker adoption of cloud. Well, why do we need a CASB, right? Well, in case you hadn't noticed, lots of data is now residing outside of the control of IT. It's in cloud applications that typically a user decides. And how can you decide whether it's sanctioned or not? I mean, if a senior person in a law part of your organization that deals with legal or marketing or sales, if that senior person decides that they should be using a cloud application to collaborate with for a legitimate business purpose, how is that shadow IT if the business has decided that person within the business? It's becoming very, very murky. So I've been involved in over 80 CASB implementations. I've been involved in numerous hundreds of customers that are at various stages of looking at the technology. And I can tell you now, if you buy a CASB based on the amount of features that the vendor shows you, you will fail. There's a massive amount of hype around CASB. People are saying, well, it'll solve all your cloud encryption problems. It'll solve all your DevOps problems. It's merging with CSPM, and it's just like, dude, seriously. People have been buying CASB because of Gartner and Forrester and IDC, etc., have been telling them to, and then that's produced an awful lot of unrealistic hope. And no, it won't solve all your encryption problems. It'll create a key management issue. No, it won't solve all your DevOps problems. It can help with some, but maybe other technologies are more appropriate. What we really want to do is focus on what works, what is proven to work, what are our customers using right now, and how are they using it? Because that's where we find value. So they kind of boil down to 5 things, right? So what are the 5 things that a CASB can fundamentally deal with? It deals with shadow IT, right? We know that. We've got free shadow IT reporting available to all our customers on our cloud web security and on-premise web security. And I'm not doing many adverts in this thing, but you get free shadow IT reporting. Contact us for a way to get them out. But CASB can also understand how to control that shadow IT. So if the answer is not necessarily block or deny, block or allow, how do you inspect the data? I'm going to show you how. Oversharing of data. People live in a collaborative world. Sharing is caring, right? Administrators making mistakes, or perhaps administrators coming under attack in the same way that users are coming under attack, in the same way that Deloitte suffered a 248,000 user breach on their Office 365 environment in 2017. It's well documented. Or how about people wanting quite legitimately to access cloud applications from devices that they choose, the tools that they choose? This is the thing, right? I've been involved in cloud security for 10 years plus actually. And I thought originally cloud was like this weird thing. Why do I put my virtual machines in an environment, a server that I can't reboot, physically can't reboot? Surely it's just a money thing, right? Saving a bit of money. But cloud to users, I mean, we're seeing, if you see things from a user's point of view, cloud to my kids is Fortnite or Clash of Clans. Be able to communicate with people that they've never met. Cloud to somebody working in office is the app that they've downloaded that allows them to collaborate. We transfer. Perhaps an instant messaging system. Cloud to a doctor is the ability to pass a picture of a heart to another medical professional to get that person saved quicker. People are developing an emotional attachment to cloud. And if you ask somebody, could you remove the apps on your phone, or no, don't mess with my apps. Just don't mess with my apps. Don't mess with my cloud. People don't even know it's cloud. It's just an app. At the end of the day, it's the function. And the part of our business, of our brain that deals with emotion, long-term memory, love, is there's a bit you can see in the middle there. So mammalian cortex. And if you're trying to stop stuff that just feels right, good luck, because IT departments that just block without providing a solution are not going to succeed. So there's, I guess there's one more. The point around Force Point is we're very good at helping understand how people are behaving over time, and what are the parameters, what are the guardrails that we can put in place that can stop the behaviour that is inappropriate, or even worse, is an indicator of compromise. So on to shadow IT. Well, I love this quote from Steve Jobs, because he was not supposed to be a particularly motivating person. He was supposed to be quite lucky when he hated you. But this is the point, right? It's all about getting the most out of people, getting the best out of people. You have incredible problem solvers within your business, And if you think about the past, right, we wanted people to be creative and create beautiful things, so that we gave them the ability to choose their own tools, and we kept those tools clean for them, and they created wonderful things. But in a digital world, you know, where the tools are cloud applications, and we are the way to keep them clean, we need to do the same. Shadow IT, if somebody's using a cloud application, it's for a reason, and that reason may be legitimate. And we need to make sure that if they're using it, then perhaps the business can understand from that, and perhaps we can discover what people are, how people are innovating. So problem number one, shadow IT, employees using their own cloud applications. Well, the old way of giving people IT, you remember when the internet barely existed? It was relatively slow, and there wasn't an awful lot on that, apart from a bit of flash. Well, the executives had all the ideas. They were the ones that went to the big conferences and bought the Siebel and the SAP and the Oracle and all the other big cloud applications that took a long time to implement, the ERP systems. And the managers, they're never going to say no to the execs. They want their jobs, right? Well, they're the ones that have to get it implemented, and it'll take time, and let's perpetuate this project and de-risk it and do lots of delivery over 4 or 5 years, and then the poor people at the bottom have to use it. And if you want to see an example of that failing, look at the National Programme for IT, the NHS IT systems in 2010, because the users were not involved. Innovation slowed down. Let's have a look at different models, right? The gaming industry, Supercell, the Ilkka Paananen, the most successful CEO of the year 2017, he turned the model on its head. His developers and community people and artists have all the power. His job, I know this guy personally, his job, he told me, was to be the least powerful CEO in the gaming industry. Valve, another example of a very flat structure. Everybody is the same. It's truly democratized. Your chair has symbolic wheels on it, so you can go wherever you like in an organization. Everybody is the same, apart from Gabe Newell, who's slightly higher than you, he's the founder, and Chet, who's the CFO. Everyone regards him as slightly below them. Look at Brian Solis' digital transformation blog. Stage 2, present and active, pockets of experimentation by users. Shadow IT is experimentation by users. Stage 3, formalized. People start to use that innovation in a way that can be a more structured way to benefit the business. How about we harness the value of the shadow IT rule breaking that's going on, and we do more of it? How about we listen to the users and we say, why are you using those cloud applications, and how can that benefit us? How can we do that? Well, first of all, we need to involve the business. We need to form a digital transformation group, an email, call it a big highly-falutin name if you like, but effectively it's an email group, right? So look, what are we seeing people are doing? Let's go and speak to the people. Let's go and speak to the business and the business's bosses and the business's bosses' bosses. Let's go and speak to IT, who may have an alternative to this file sharing system that we're seeing people using, for example. Let's talk to the security. Well, we are the security team, right? We understand governance and risk and CIA. But what about finance and legal and privacy? They may have a GDPR angle on it, for example. So how do we do it? So we form the group, and then we gather the data. And what you're seeing here is our cloud web security. We can do shadow IT reporting from our on-premise, and also really any device. We have, well, as many CASB vendors do, shadow IT functionality from any system whatsoever. We say, look, what are, for example, I don't know, the most popular or most risky cloud applications? Collaboration, right? Collaboration doesn't really matter whether it's a legitimate collaboration or an illegitimate collaboration. If there's lots of data gone up, the data's gone, right? So, in collaboration, Google Docs, Google Hangouts, Lydia.com, lots of data going up. So let's have a look at the volumes. Let's maybe compare them, because we might want to look at what's more appropriate or not. But more importantly is talk to the users, right? Why did Adriini or Batani or Pajoli or Walling, why did you upload lots of data to Google Docs? Just go and talk to them. Say, look, we're not criticizing you. It's not negative. Just give us an idea. And if the answer is it's my pictures of my kids at a party, well, then the business needs to make a decision whether that's appropriate. But if the answer is I'm working with a law firm for a project that is critical, or we're collaborating with a manufacturing part of our business, or working in a different part of our company that uses a different file sharing system that we have no control over, what do? Block it? You're going to see, you just block the business. No, you can't block the business. That's that. People just find a different way of doing it. Even if you're successful in blocking it, people will find another way. So allowing and blocking, the tools that you currently have, as Shona mentioned, the tools that we've got right now in place can allow or block. They're not great at inspecting the data and controlling it, and they're not great at spotting where there's innovation that could be adopted by the wider business. Let me give you an example. Within our CASB, we have a way to, within our web security and cloud web security, we have a way to protect cloud applications. So not only spot that people are going to them, but protecting them. So this is an example here of Slack. The video should be playing. I apologize if it's a bit lag. So in the case of this, the user has decided they're going to use Slack. They have a legitimate business purpose for it. So we're going to create a policy that will work on forward and reverse proxy, but in this case forward proxying from a sanctioned company device to an unsanctioned Slack. And if we see that there is credit card data going into Slack, we're pulling a man in the middle and we're going to block just the credit card data. This is a very simple example. It gets a lot more sophisticated, but just for the sake of argument. So we want to do two things here. We want to protect the integrity and confidentiality of the company data, but we also don't want to damage the user experience that the Slack user has, because it might be something that's really, really important to them. So our global cloud proxy is based on AWS and Azure, so we can, our customers can use any combination. So we can basically say, look, if you have users over in Japan, for example, and there's an AWS environment in availability zone in Japan, we're going to route the traffic from them to that AWS environment and then inspect the data and apply the policy consistently across the globe. So that's the user experience. So we're losing 6 seconds to total time to upload and scan data for files, and it's 2 seconds for messages. And it's roughly in line with the user experience that customers would get. There's not an awful lot of difference. We often get the question, does it create much lag? And it depends what we're doing, but it's typically no to maybe 20% increased lag, but it's very rarely perceptible to the users. So of course we're seeing in real time what's happening, and then a little bit further on this video you'd see that the DLP system would be triggered and the sample would be located in the DLP system. We don't store data within a CASB system for obvious reasons. It's cloud-based, but we can store the samples of data within an on-premise DLP. So I wanted to give you an example of one customer where this really did matter. This is a Bytes SP customer, of course, and it's somewhere in Europe. They're a gas manufacturer, drilling gas and oil and hydrocarbons, that sort of thing. And they basically called us in and they said, look, we think that we'd like to get more value out of the shadow IT reporting that's within our gateway. So we've got 2,000 users in this part of our business. Most of us are on 8.3, which is an older version of the software, but we'd like to upgrade. We'd like reasons to do that. And so we did. We showed them the 15 users that they've got on 8.5. We said, look, let's have a look at the shadow IT reporting that you've got in your test users. The IT department is on 8.5. And we ran a very quick report, as you saw, and we saw that there was lots of file sharing being done by one person on WeTransfer. And we looked who it was, and it was, the 15 people in this test environment were the IT department. So it was no surprise that the guy who uploaded 100 meg to WeTransfer was in the room. He was the force point administrator. I said, why did you do it? He said, well, I needed to get a large file out. It was 100 meg. I was sending it to Bytes, and end of the day, it's just an MSI image. I trust Bytes, and I'm a grown up. I said, well, why didn't you use a company tool? He said, well, we don't really have a way of getting 100 meg out. And it's like, well, is the same policy applied across the 2,000 users? Is the same access? And he said, yeah. So the problem was, of course, they were allowing unfettered access to people to high-risk cloud applications. It was just really simple to shine a light into where the value was, but we don't want to shine a light if we can't shine a solution, if we can't show them that there's a solution. Very simple. Transfer the traffic instead of first to WeTransfer, but first to the CASB, and strip out the sensitive stuff, but allow the good stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. So scenario. Let's talk about attack surface. Right. So people are being attacked, and often it's for reasons that you don't expect. So I wanted to give you one example of a media company that we have globally. So they have 1,100 users on Office 365. They don't really care about data, actually. They care about the integrity of the sources of people that talk to them, because they don't want to have another situation like Jamal Khashoggi. They know that people are under attack. Journalists are under attack. So Office 365 connected to the CASB, and we just watching the behavior of the users. They weren't a particularly how's the right way to say it? Sophisticated security company. They didn't really put much in the way of policies. What they did do, though, was they allowed our CASB to watch the behavior of their Office 365 users. And then I got a call at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the call went like this: Dave, we have a bit of a problem. I'm sorry to wake you. I was like, go on then. He said, well, our Office 365 system is showing nothing. So we think there's a big false positive with your product, because your product is telling us that 20 minutes ago, one of our journalists' Office 365 accounts got hacked. So we need to know what to do. So they sent me the logs. There were 5 things. Basically, the bottom line was you were totally under attack. Try not to swear. You're totally under attack. You need to do whatever you need to do right now because you have an active attack underway. So what had happened was, the journalists normally uses an iOS device. We machine learn devices. And all of a sudden, they started to access Office 365 from an Android device. Now, it's possible that they've lost their phone and got a replacement themselves. We saw in the logs that access to that Office 365 was from the Ukraine. It's possible that they lost their phone, got a replacement, gone on holiday, I suppose. We then saw that from one IP address in the Ukraine, there were 4 repeated failed username and password logins. Now, I suppose theoretically he's lost his phone, he's lost, maybe he's forgotten his password and his username. But from the same IP address, the fifth attempt was successful. So this is looking super fishy right now, right? But of course, Office 365 telling them nothing, so they're not looking for these behaviors. But we did. We then correlated that IP address with a list of known bad IP addresses, and yes, it was a Russian nationalist hacking group that operates out of the Ukraine. And the advice had to be to take whatever can't tell you what to do, but it's telling you now you're under attack. And tell the authorities or do what you need to do. So that ability to monitor behavior, not only machine learn behavior, but also look for anomalous types of behavior, like what you're seeing on screen right now, which of course is a brute force attack on Office 365. It's important, but it's also important to correlate. So here we go, just to show you in real time that we can see a brute force attack from a single IP address range. So all of our customers that buy our CASB get all of this user behavior analytics out of the box. And it's like the media company, you don't necessarily have the resources to have lots of people to manage your CASB, then that is the point, right? The point is this stuff just works in the background. We don't want to show you a lot of noise. We want to just tell you that somebody's under attack. You can see from the interface here how we can show you that over time. This is what happened, some recommendations, the way to create a PDF to send that off to someone, or of course it will integrate with your SIM or whatever it is. Okay, let's talk about admins. So, admins have God mode, right? If you want a secret to CASB success, it's focus on your administrators. They're the ones that have the ability to cause lots of disruption, to say, if something goes wrong. So we use really strong behavior analytics to try and differentiate between an admin that's just doing their normal job and an admin that's maybe it's Friday afternoon, they decided they want to get home early. So maybe you just add a couple of Microsoft.com users to Office 365 without telling anybody, or just remove two-factor authentication perhaps from their account so they can work from home, whatever it is. I want to give you an example. So this is Statoil, an organisation in Norway. Norway is actually one of the richest countries in the world per capita, and it's largely because of hydrocarbons. We want to keep those. They want to keep those pumps flowing, and sadly, in 2017, one of their sort of pumping stations in the, what do they call pumping stations in the middle of the North Sea, was shut down for safety purposes. The reason was because they'd outsourced their IT, and that involves the virtual machines that were located, that were operating the pumping systems and the cooling systems on this oil platform to an outsourcer, and by accident the outsourcer turned off the virtual machines. So the administrators in the Indian subcontinent caused a consequent physical security breach in the North Sea. So it wasn't intentional, but the quote from the CIO at Statoil was, "We're not making chocolate here. This is important." I thought quite funny. So put in systems that you can not only control user behavior, but also assess whether that the appropriate levels of controls are in place. And what you're seeing on screen here is us assessing your implementation, our customer's implementation of AWS against the AWS CI standards. So, if you said we are only going to allow people to access AWS if they have single sign-on enabled, or if they have encryption, or if perhaps they, all the details that relate to that standard, we're monitoring the technical controls that relate to that standard, and we can give you an assessment of that. So we can not only control the behavior in real time, we can also independently audit the settings. We cannot, of course, audit the policies and procedures that you have around that, but it can give you a rich stream of information to help you understand whether there are risky areas within your implementation. So kind of just very, very briefly touching on controls. So any CASB has to operate in multi-mode. There's some that don't. Microsoft doesn't have a forward proxy, and Cisco doesn't have a proxy system. It's API driven, etc. But we try to have a wide breadth of controls. So the controls matter in certain places, right? So if you consider it in this matrix, so if it's a managed device, your device connecting to your Office 365 box, Salesforce, whatever, you have lots of control. You can have an API trusted connection, just like the media company did. You can possibly put agents on the devices for forwarding traffic if you don't have Force Points Gateway. You have a forward proxy capability, of course, from Force Points Gateway, and also we have reverse proxy, which is for unmanaged devices. Anyway, so if you have a managed device connecting to a corporate tenant that you're providing loads of control. If it's an unmanaged device, well, it's API and reverse proxy really. So we need to focus on those. And likewise, if you have a personal tenant of Office 365, maybe personal OneDrive or personal email, and people are trying to connect to that from their company device, really forwarding the traffic and controlling traffic in real time is the best control. So let's talk very briefly about these controls, right? In this architecture, the customer has Force Point Gateway and Force Point has Force Point DLP, but that is not a prerequisite. If you do not have Force Points technology that's shown here in the customer perimeter, we would just use an agent on your device to forward that traffic in real time. So we can uniquely forward any traffic or control any traffic and any user action in any cloud application. So any cloud application and any user action. And if for example, we had a situation last week where the customer required additional user actions to be put into Office 365. The customer said, look, we really want you to be able to control in Teams, say to local machine, because that's the use case they had. So we could just quickly map it within a number of hours. Actually, we mapped an extra control for that particular customer. We put it into the product. So I want to give you an example of forward proxying. So we're going to start with the Force Point Gateway. Actually, in this case, we're just going to have a very, very quick look at the shadow IT functionality within the gateway. So this is why we transfer is high risk. I mean, it's high risk because it's a file sharing application. Right? But look, there's the details behind it, the translation, and here's the policy. So the organization has the right to do anything, really. You can block it, allow it. With gateway devices, you typically do that, right? So you can say, look, let's block all high-risk cloud applications, or put cloud applications into a block area for a certain period of time, or give people a window to allow them to access it, whatever it is you want to do via the proxy. No problem at all. The problem is you can't inspect the data. You can't look at the behavior of the users around that. So if you are allowing people to use cloud applications such as Office 365, you might want to control risks around Office 365 that may not be particularly apparent to you. So we have this concept of protected cloud applications. So from the gateway, or from an agent if you don't have ForcePoint's gateway, we can push traffic for that specific cloud application through the CASB and apply guardrails. Remember there's guardrails down the side? Well, one guardrail could be, don't allow people to access personal OneDrive. Don't allow people to access personal Office 365 from the workplace. You might make that decision. Now look how simple the policy is to do that. If the action is logged on and it's not from within your organization, block that user. Now Microsoft, of course, don't have full proxy within Office 365, so it's impossible for them to do so. They would try and accomplish it using conditional access, but that's not the great user experience. What we want to do here is just say, look, instead of just making people do VPNs and things like that from networks, just control it. Perhaps people are trying to share data from within your corporate Office 365 outside the business. So within your company's OneDrive, try to share with Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts or anything really. All of this is totally configurable. So if the action is external shared, it's not within your organization, then just block it. You could add in a DLP policy into that, or integrate with ForcePoint DLP or any DLP system really. But so if the user is going to OneDrive from your company, sanctioned OneDrive, of course, let's say confidential IT document .doc. Don't worry, we don't look at the name of the doc. It's not that easy. There we go. And he's trying to share it with his Gmail account, which says it's outside the organization. Click send, and guess what? I've seen this movie before, right? So it's blocked in real time. Very simple guardrails to solve some really often challenging security areas. These are not challenging for us. These are very simple out of the box stuff, but it's not necessarily something that is easily solved by existing technology. So mail an attachment to an authorized system. You might decide that if the users are using Outlook and they're trying to attach documents from laptops or devices, company sanctioned laptops, and it's outside of your business, that you might want to block that. I mean, we understand about 700 objects currently within Office 365, and this is just Office 365, right? You say anything you particularly want to control, you can control it. So user decides they want to attach a document, whatever it might be. In this case, it's a JPEG, and they're going to send it to their Gmail account, and we're going to block it in real time. There we go. Test mail with attachment or time clicker. So really simple, out of the box, guardrail to bounce the customer back in. To bounce the user back in if they forget the acceptable usage policy within the business. It's like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't email that big file to the email address so I can work it. Sorry. Anyway, I'm going to just bang this one forward. So there's another scenario, right? Users sharing too much data, right? People are sharing. You want people to collaborate. You don't want to stop people from using Teams or Box, Dropbox, if that's what you decided you want to do. But really, when was the last time that we shared something with an outsider and then we unshared the link? It doesn't happen, right? There's a massive risk here that people will just use company sanctioned, I don't know, Box, Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever it is. And then when they leave the company, they've still got that, non-authenticated link that they can just click and get the data. So we've got a number of ways, right? So we can use, if you've got ForcePoint DLP, it's a very seamless way to extend your DLP policies, procedures, handling processes into the cloud, and that's called DLP Cloud Apps, and also via CASB. Now we're going through a process where we're going to be bundling these technologies together in a slightly different way. But technology exists to be able to extend your existing DLP. It means that you can avoid having separate islands of data. You don't want to have multiple DLP systems in place. Trust me, it's hard enough managing them all. So this is going to show you how we can do the DLP integration. So this is integration with GitHub. So if the organization has decided they want to use GitHub, or the users have decided they want to use GitHub, but the organization wants to define what is sensitive data. In this case, it's going to be NetApp filer source code or something. But the users decided, well, actually, I want to test the work that I'm doing with real data. I don't care about our company policy on data, here we go. So something went wrong. We couldn't process that file. So the CASB in real time, with pretty much zero latency, has blocked the uploading of sensitive data to a GitHub environment. Now this could be the company's GitHub environment, or it could be the developer within the company has decided they want to use their own, which is even worse, right? So since I can't upload a file, I'm going to try and paste it in as well. There we go. Because this is the process that a developer would normally go, right? Text editor, cut and paste the code into GitHub. I'll get it out that way. He's a sneaky developer. There we go. Come on, copy and paste. We can pop it up into GitHub, and he's going to be happy because he's got his data up there. There we go. So new code, exact exfiltration test. There we go. So it's going to call it text test exfiltration. That's very handy, but it's been blocked in real time. So as you can see, we can protect sensitive data going into any environment, really. So there's an API approach, right? So this is a trusted relationship between the CASB and the cloud application. What can that give you? Well, if you've integrated it with our force-point DLP, that can give you the ability to drive DLP actions into cloud applications. So quarantine with notes, unshare internal, external shares of sensitive data. So if you've got Office 365, for example, then you can define data just once, but you can have appropriate controls wherever it may be. In this case, in this example, it's French personal data. So French, it's very actually not that difficult to define what GDPR-related personal data is these days, because force-point DLP has them all out of the box. But what you want to try and do is have a consistent way of extending that in. So this is the DLP environment, by the way, that you're seeing right now. You can see, this is the regulation, so French personal data, the INSEE code, whatever that might be, and we're going to create a policy to see if we see French personal data leaving the organization, we're going to control it. And in some places, sometimes it's in the cloud. It's going to be via the cloud service. So the CASB service is going to unshare internal, external, etc. from within the DLP. So the DLP is driving the policy into the cloud. Anyway, it's not a particularly interesting video, so I'm going to fast forward this one. Let's talk about personal use, unleashing the power of personal devices. I mentioned earlier about the Deloitte breach. It's always a balance when you're trying to figure out what the right level of security is. Do you allow the users a lot of access, or does the focus go on security? And sometimes it's difficult to get it right, no matter how well you try. And in this case, there were two things that were really just not right. Number one was they were allowing unmanaged device access to Office 365. And number two, in the UK, they were, according to the press, they were not enforcing two-factor authentication. So the usability was great, and then they got hacked, and they lost customers. And there were secondary hacks as well after that. They found the information. use it to do other things. So these guys were a victim here, but the thing is that it was just an example of too much leeway being given to the users. So what can we do? We want to give people the ability to use their own devices, for example, but in a way that isn't going to damage the risk to the organization. So single sign-on and federated identity is critical to all of this. And of course, we work with all the major critical SSO environments. So how about if it's an unmanaged device coming onto a cloud application that you're providing, we of course check the identity, but give them appropriate controls. Remember those guardrails? Yeah. If your guardrail is, if it's an unmanaged device, give them limited access to Office 365. It's a super simple policy, right? And if the endpoint is unmanaged and the action is view or log in, and it's to categories within Office 365, remember there's 700 that we can do, but so let's just say for simplicity, it's Yammer, Teams, OneDrive, and then we're going to block that, right? So let's block that from unmanaged devices. But what about allowing them to write Word documents, because they might need to work on the go? What about allowing them to access their email, because that might be an acceptable level of risk? So what the demo here is showing is that people are giving them access to Office 365 for sure, but we're blocking bits of Office 365 that are too risky, and it's driven by the policy, and it's doing it in real time. So, for example, Teams. Now, this is not something that can be accomplished with using an API, because an API is always kind of after the fact. This has to be real time. So, giving real time control. So, there we go. Users trying to access Teams. Sorry, Teams is blocked. But you know, what about Word? Can we write a Word document? Yes, we can. We can write a Word document. Now, these policies can get a lot more granular. You can say, let people write Word documents, but not download existing Word documents, or don't. You know, any action within any cloud application is the rule, right? And if you're a ForcePoint CASB customer, you get 15 cloud applications that you can protect. And if there are cloud applications that we don't have in our system that you want to protect in the future, if they're public cloud applications, it's no cost at all to you. It's included in the license that you would have. I mean, not 15. So let's anyway. So anyway, goes on to send an email. So the architecture for our CASB is fully integrated. It's modular, although from a licensing point of view, you don't have any extra to pay. And if you've got DLP, you can extend that in. You've got web security, you can seamlessly transparent with proxy traffic. So going back to use cases, right? You remember there's 5 use cases in Shadow IT plus these 4. I made a bold statement earlier, which said that if you, the customers that are focusing on what has the most features are invariably set to fail. I'm not kidding. I've seen success, and the secret to success has been when people focus on what are the biggest risks for us around oversharing data, what our administrators are doing, and then show me in a proof of concept, proof of value, RF, whatever it happens to be, just show me how you can do simple solutions to overcome these hurdles. Customers are buying tactically. It's highly likely that you're interested in CASB for a strategic purpose, but it's probably likely that you've actually just got a few problems you need to solve right now. If you can get those problems solved, you can build confidence in the business for the platform going forward. So let's work with you to fire some bullets at those risks. Very simple. There's what is possible. Typical deployment, well, start simple. You know, in this case, for this particular customer, look at the data at rest. Look at data at rest and data in motion, and so forth and so forth. I wanted to talk about 2 more very, very quick things. There's one sort of edge case around our CASB, which is around protection against fraud for online systems. Because I mentioned that we're very strong around user behavior analytics, one of our customers here in the UK actually, who've been a customer of our product for 5 years, so why don't we apply the same user behavior analytics in a reverse proxy configuration to our customers, our banking customers? We've got 1 million banking customers. How can we reduce fraud by spotting whether people are, you know, trying to access the same account from multiple different locations, that it's impossible to travel locations, that sort of thing? Well, we did, and we you know, what could go wrong putting 1 million customers through our CASB? So this augments traditional anti-fraud measures, which are typically quite static, not particularly time dynamic in terms of how rapidly things are changing, but they are deep. So this is a layer in front of the banking application to spot things in real time. Typical types of things it can spot are, this thing when you're a 19-year-old and you think that you can earn money really quickly without having to work. It's called becoming a criminal. You spot the thing on Facebook that says, launder my cash. Sorry, never as nice as launder my cash. Message me if you're a verified PayPal and want to earn a load of money. It's money laundering, right? Making the money of drugs and extortion and whatever. So this is a Swiss example here. Sorry about this. So the example is, right, we're watching the normal balance that a person has. If that balance goes down to zero, slightly more risk. Then we start to see the account gets access from outside of the normal geography. Or you could say, look, by geographies that are risky, or known to be risky. Then there's lots of transfers into the account, lots of transfers out of the account, and then leave some money. So typically an anti-fraud system would trigger when the log files are available to the system. They're not embedded or in real time. What we are doing is a layer in front, so we can spot the behavior, the correlation of the behavior together to raise the risk and inform what is typically a manual process. Investigators to say, look, here's 5 things that have happened right now. Go and have a look at your existing anti-fraud system and see whether or not it should be blocked, because that heist, if you like, is going on in real time. So the force point detection server is a reverse proxy, and there's load balancers around it. We're protecting not only the actions of the customers, but also the actions of the employees, because there are risk scenarios around employees doing bad stuff. Money changes people. If, for example, a bank employee decides to quietly sort of use their credentials to see whether or not, the elderly gentleman that came in yesterday has got a load of money in his account, or perhaps there's accounts that haven't been accessed for quite a while that have high bank balances, or maybe the administrator of the banking app has put a back door in. So when the traffic goes through us, we can detect it. I wanted to share with you, finally, the typical process. So I kind of mentioned that we need to focus on the risk to a customer. This is a product of a discussion that we have with customers quite often. The customers will say, we have a shadow IT problem. We've got tools in place to block and allow it, but what about controlling it? How simple can you make it for me to apply controls? So first of all, we talk about that discussion around the digital transformation team. And by the way, the adoption is not just a technical thing. If you see that people are using Slack, for example, as part of your business, and they have a legitimate purpose for it, it's not, as you know, just as simple as saying, right, knock yourself out, lads. You have to go through appropriate due diligence to make sure that the contractual relationship that you have with Slack is from the business rather than from the users, for example. Procurement is important. Then we would say to the customer, look, you have these components in place right now. And we would suggest that you would put the following policies in place. So we have Forcepoint Security Manager, you have the Cloud Application Control module, the CASB, and we're going to put these policies in place. Now, we've spoken to you, Mr. Customer. We see that you're concerned about sharing of data. You told us that you're concerned about personal account access. So here is the specific policy. If it's any occurrence of the action is login, and the login is not XYZ company, block it. If the concern is external share of personal accounts, this is how you deal with that. Auto forwarding rule, etc. So we're basically we would take a client through a innovation process that could enable them to say, look, for example, if your system, if your Office 365 is being accessed from outside of these countries, don't allow that. So really specific bullets to knock down some risk. And Shona, I think if you saw the line, I think we're very close to time. I'm so sorry I've run over or running over.
If
you are.
Dave, I have a couple of questions for you already. If you want to wrap up quickly, and then we'll get into questions.
Let's go for the questions. Everybody knows who I am.
So lovely. If anyone's got any other questions, please do pop up in the questions box and type them in, and I will pose them to Dave as well. So first question I do have is around points of presence. Where do you have points of presence, and how do you get around the China/UAE conundrum?
Well, it's useful because in the UAE, on that one, they just Azure, and so our points of presence for gateway traffic is any Azure availability zone, or AWS availability zone, or where there's an Azure. And in the Middle East, and I believe in China, they now have AWS and Azure availability zones. I think we used to, up to a while ago, outboard from China through Hong Kong. But it's a architectural discussion, really, with technical people. It's relatively simple for us to set up gateways in locations that are close to a customer, either in Azure or AWS.
Okay, thank you. And again, for that person who asked, more than happy to provide some further documentation based on your particular needs via your Bytes account manager later on. So I just want to thank everyone for their time. I haven't got any further questions at the moment. If you do have any more questions around any of the technical elements or the use cases that Dave has presented today, please do type them in. I'll get a couple of minutes just to wait for those. In the meantime, I'd just like to personally thank everyone for taking the time to attend today. I appreciate that everyone does have very busy schedules. An hour out of someone's day to have a look at some new technologies and emerging technologies is much appreciated. I want to also thank Dave for his comprehensive presentation and also taking his time in order to share some insights with us and these use cases with us this morning. I don't have any further questions. Of course, please do email me across any questions that occur to you afterwards, and I will make sure that those are posed to the Forcepoint team. So with that in mind, I'm just going to close the webinar. Thanks everyone for their time in attending today, and just reiterate that we will send across the recorded version of this to everyone post-webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Shona. Thank you, everybody.